Alright, so you want to get into Warhammer 40k. Space Marine 2 just dropped, the hype's heavy, it looks super cool, but you got absolutely no idea what's going on. Nothing wrong with that. Warhammer 40k lore is so expansive, it's kind of like reading Silmarillion by Tolkien to a toddler, and then asking them to tell you what happened in it. So that's where this video comes in. This can serve as a nice little beginner guide without all the convoluted tangents and explanations. This is Warhammer 40k for noobs. 40k is a work of science fiction that, in my opinion, is an extended parody of our actual real life. But aside, it takes place mostly around 40,000 years from now in the 41st millennium. It has an important and detailed prelude that takes place 10,000 years before that, and we're creeping towards events taking place in the 42nd millennium, but for the most part it's in the 41st. The lore takes place in our galaxy. There's even an Earth, just called Terra. Humanity has colonized a large portion of it, but before we get to that, we've got to look at the very beginning. Okay, maybe not the very beginning, because that would be about the old gods and the Necrons, and it can get a little complicated, so we'll talk about the beginning of what you, as a beginner, are probably familiar with when it comes to Warhammer media: the Imperium of Man and Space Marines. Before we begin, one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the records of humanity from our real lifetime is mostly lost, known as the Dark Age of Technology. Much information is fractured, and there are entire factions and groups dedicated to discovering lost artifacts from this time period. Like, these guys would get excited to find a toaster. But what you need to know is that eventually we, humanity as a whole, advanced well beyond any comprehension of what we have now, and became adept at space travel. So, we did what humans always do. We spread like a bad mouth sore at a crack house. There's a lot of nuanced things that can be mentioned and explained here, such as the Navigators, Psychers, and the Warp. However, I want to keep this simple, and we can touch on those in later videos. So humanity enters what's called the Age of Strife. Essentially, we were dabbling in forces we didn't understand, encountered demonic entities of the Warp, and countless other horrible events. However, humanity still prevailed, but not without great losses and a hefty cost, and eventually, we were scattered all across the galaxy. Another thing to note is that as we became so technologically advanced, the need for humans to actually do stuff disappeared. We had AI and robots do everything for us, which led humanity to grow bored, complacent. So people began desperately finding ways to entertain themselves, which led to disgusting and abhorrent practices just for amusement, like watching any show that Logan Paul or his brother are in. This is also another point where chaos gods could become mentioned. However, like before, I'll focus on the simpler things and touch on the more complex facets in another video. So fast forwarding a little, due to these self-destructive pleasure-seeking habits, humanity as a whole began to plummet fast. However, then came the end of the Age of Strife, with the appearance of the one and only Emperor of Mankind. Praise be unto him, you filthy heretics. The Emperor, in simple terms, was a man of great power, knowledge, and philosophy. He became the greatest warlord of Terra. Something important to note: as humanity fell into depravity, they lost everything. With so many scattered through the cosmos, lost, the people on Terra seemed to revert to a barbaric society. Picture Mad Max, that apocalyptic world. That was essentially Terra, what it had been reduced to. It's said that the Emperor was biding his time, building up an army of genetically enhanced super soldiers who would be the prototype template for the Space Marines that you know of today. So you might be asking yourself, what did the Emperor hope to accomplish here? What was the point of these so-called unification wars? Well, for one, unifying Terra. He was trying to make Terra great again. He wanted to unify everybody under what he would call the Imperial Truth. Now, the Imperial Truth was an ideology of atheism, rationalism, and materialistic nature. It was created by the Emperor to replace the older traditions of religion. In simple terms, the Imperial Truth stated that the universe was rational and that knowledge defeated fear, and also condemned irrationality, superstition, and faith. So, the Unification Wars. The Emperor would crusade across all of Terra, wiping out warbands and warlords in whatever way was necessary, either by, very rarely, diplomacy, or by the more common squashing of his enemies with his super soldiers. So all in all, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, the Emperor wins and the Unification Wars come to an end. However, it wasn't enough to just merely win. The revitalization of humanity needed more. So even before the Emperor's victory, he began experimenting on genetics. At first, it was to stabilize the human race and to recreate humans as they were before this chemical and nuclear apocalypse. However, secondly, it was to begin creation on what would eventually be known to all as the Space Marines. So with Terra unified under the Emperor's rule, he began journeying out, and his first stop was to secure an alliance with the Tech Priests of Mars, the Adeptus Mechanicus, or Tech Priests. They're a very interesting faction that I'll explain in depth in another video, but for now, all you need to know is that the Tech Priests were the master of all things mechanical and held the strongest grasp on technology. This would become the foundation of everything in the 40k lore, and is how this video will end. As in order to explain the very crucial aspect of Warhammer 40k, the Horus Heresy, other topics have to be explored first. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you. If you liked the video, like the video. If you have any comments, concerns, questions, put them down in the comment section. I'm going to be doing this as a new series, and we will explore as much as I can. My goal here is to get people into Warhammer 40k, and with Space Marine 2 being such a success, this seems like a great time to do it. One of the main motivations behind making this video was I remember when I first got introduced to 40k, mine was just the minis. All I cared about was assembling the minis and painting them. They just looked cool. Another big motivation was my wife likes to play whatever I play, and so when we're playing Space Marine 2, she doesn't have any idea what any of it means or what's going on. So I figured maybe there are other people out there like that and they want to get into it and need a little help. That's what I'm here for. So until I see you again, praise the Emperor.
Press start and join the fun, a gamer's paradise. Enter the gaming pro, always in the zone. With a quirky smile, he's never alone. In the heat of the match, hear the crowd roar. Together we conquer, forever we score.